Hi everyone, welcome again to another advanced Python tutorial. So if you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing, liking and leaving your comment below. So without further words, let's get started. So on this video, we're going to talk about strings, and strings are ordered and immutable collection of data type that are used for text representation, and it's one of the most used data type in Python. So a string is created by using either single quotes or double quotes. For example, you may write my string. Let's say this equal to what we most used to write. Let's say equal to, let's say it's hello world. So we are writing this using the double quotes. So we may decide to print this. So if we print this and save this, so we are going to have hello world here. So you may decide to use single quote, and this is, there's no issue here. So if you save this and print this here, have the same word here. Okay, the only thing that you have to be very careful when you are using strings. For example, if you declare a string like, let's say you say so, as you can see here, also our code, it just gave us an error that you can't write a string like this. So we need to find the solution to write this. So the best solution you can do with this is that you can use a backslash, an escaping backslash. Yes, here if you go ahead and save this, if you print it, you have I am a developer. The other method you can use here is just to use double quotes. So you use single quotes inside a double quote. So putting like this is going to solve our problem also. You can see we don't have any problem, and if we print it here, still we have the same answer actually. Okay, you may sometimes see triple quotes when you're defining a string. So if you see triple quotes like this, this is typically used for multi-line strings or documentation. Okay, so if you have a lot of friends, let's say if we print this here, see we have different lines, and sometimes we may, yeah, of course, sometimes we may put an escaping backslash here. This is just telling that the string should just proceed on the same line, not starting a new line. For example, if we print this, we are going to have the whole word is joined. So it's just telling that if you are printing the hello word, just proceed on this line and do not start a new line. Okay, it's like that. Now if you want to access the characters inside your string, for example, it's just simple. If we have been used to list, just the same. Let's say we want to have a character equals to, let's say, my string, and let's put it index 0 and see what we're going to get here. And instead of printing a string, let us just print C here, and let's save this. And if we print here, we are going to have H. This is index 0. We can try also for, let's say, index 3, and save this. We are going to have L. So this is how you can access your characters inside a string. Okay, now you may also sometimes try for a negative value. So if you put here negative, let's say -1, if we save this and if we print here, we are going to have D, because this is a Rust element from our string. Okay, and we may also try to use -2. Let's say for -2, what we're going to get here, so you can probably guess it is L, because L is here. Okay, what we can do is trying to access a character and change it. For example, assigning a character to a string, as we have learned that strings are immutable. So assigning a character is going to have, it's going to give us a problem here. For example, we may decide to do this. Let's say we have my string here, and let's say my string, let's say at index 0, and say let us assign it to W. Let's say assign it to W. So if you can see, we can't assign this. If we print this here, let's say my string, probably we're going to have the problem, and this is the error. So we get an error that string object does not support item assignment. This is because strings are immutable, and that's why we're going to have this error here. Okay, now we can also access characters by slicing them. So for example, let's just delete this. We may decide to slice our string. For example, let's take this example here. Now let's say C equals to my string, and let us give it an index of, so here we may decide to, if we go maybe from 1 and say put a colon here and say to 5, let's try to print this. So we should print C here, save this. If we print it here, we are going to have ELLO. That means it started from 1 here, 1 2 3 4, but excluding 5, which is the space here. That's why we have this one here. So you may also decide to, if we can also decide to, maybe if you don't specify the starting index, that means it's going to start from 0, and if you don't specify the ending index, so it's just going to go from beginning to the end. Okay, so we can also try to use the step index. So we may decide to use double colons here. If you use double colons, and the stepping index, we're just telling our program that we should go maybe by using one step. So if we go by using one step, we are going to have the whole string here. Yes, we are going to have the whole word. But if we may decide to go maybe skip by two steps, and if we save this here and print it here, we get this, I don't know what it is here. Okay, so that's how we can slice our strings. So we can also try to use the negative index. For example, if we put -1 here and save here, if we print C, we are going to have a reversed string. So this is a nice trick if you want to reverse your string. Okay, that's good. Okay, We can also try to concatenate two strings and we see what we have. So for example, using just our string here, let's say like greeting, let us give this equals to hello. Remember, you can use single or two quotes, and let's say name and give this to Tony. If we want to concatenate these strings, we can just use the plus sign. We may say hi, maybe let's hi equals to, let's say, to greeting, and let's put a space here. Yes, greeting, let's say plus sign here, and let's put a space here and press the name here. So if we go ahead and print hi here, if we print here, we're going to have hello tone. So this is how, guys, you can concatenate a string. We can also decide to iterate through our string. For example, we have a string here and we called it hello. So we may decide to go to loop through our string. So for example, you can say for maybe I in greetings, we may decide to print, if we print I here, so we have a looped string here, as you can see. So this is how you can loop through your string. It's not necessary to put I here, you can put X or any character you want. Also, you can check if a character is found inside your string. For example, you may use an if statement. You can say if, say e in a greeting, let's say we print, let's print yes, as we should print no. Okay, so if save this, and if we print here, we have yes because e is found in our string. We can just try to check for a letter which is not in our string. Let's say test p and save here. If we print here, we are going to have no. So guys, this is how you can check if a character is inside your string. Okay, now let's talk about some more useful things you can do with strings. So let's just say you have a string and some wider space, like here. Let's say you have 3 spaces here, and say we have spaces here. Okay, now if we save and print this, see, we are going to have all the spaces as we can see them here. So to go around this, we may use the string method, which is called stripe. We say my string, let's say, equals to notes here. I'm assigning string to my string again, and string dot stripe here, and save. Let's save this. If we print here, we are going to have our string without the spaces. So this is a very good method if you want to get rid of the spaces from the beginning or the end of your string. Just we need to be aware that this method does not change our string in place. As I just said, that strings are immutable. That's why we're able to assign a string like this. We may say to assign with the other character, but it just does not change to just prove what I'm saying. If you just read here and just say my string dot stripe and try to print, let's just save this. If we try to print it here, let's see what we got here. We are going to have the same hello world. You know why? Because this function here didn't work, so needed to assign it before we can print it here. So okay, I hope this is understood. Also, we can convert our characters inside our strings. For example, we may decide to, let's get rid of this. We may decide to print my string, let's say dot lower. Okay, so it's a function, remember. If we save this and if we print here, because we wanted it to be lower, just we can use the lower function. So we need to see the difference if we put upper here, so we can use the string dot upper. If you save here, we are going to have, so our string is changed to upper, so we may decide to bring it to lower again, so we may have a lower string here. Okay, we can also check if our strings may start with a specific character. So let's say our string maybe, let's say starts with, so this is the function, starts with, let's say with h, so we got true. And let's say if it starts with, let's put e here just to test, we are going to have a false here. So we can use the start with. We can also check by using the end with, ends with. So if we say ends with d here, we save this, we are going to have true. And if we test it for e here, we expect to have false. See, we are going to have false here. Okay, that's how we can use the start with and ends with. Okay, now we can find the index of a character or a substring by using the find method. So if we say, by using the find method, just using our first element, let's say we can use find here, let's say we find e, as if save this, and if we print it here, we are going to have is index number 1. Of course, this is true if we start with 0, and this e here is 1. Okay, so we may find d also, and we have 10 here. I think it's 10. Let's see, it's 0 0 1 2 3 4 5, of course. Okay, so let's check for a string which doesn't exist. See what we have. Let's say we check for p. If we print here, we got -1. So if we check for a character which doesn't exist, we're going to have -1. Okay, we can also count the number of characters or substrings inside our string. For example, we may just count how many we have. Let's say use this method called count. So we may count how many, let's say else we have here. If we save this, printing here, we have 3 else. We may also, maybe for d here, also have 1D. So this is how you can use the count method inside our string. Also, we can replace a character or a substring inside our string. Let's use our same string here. We can use the replace method. So if we replace, we have to replace, let's replace hero with hero is high. Okay, so if we save this and if we print it here, we are going to have high weight. So we can also use a replace function, built-in function, to replace our characters or sub strings. Okay, now let's try to test for a string, a character which doesn't exist. It might be like this one. Let's say if we print this, we're going to have what? So doesn't return anything, just return the previous strings defined. Okay, that's how it works. Let us talk about list and strings, how we can work with them. Okay, for example, let's just write how are you. Now this is our string. If we print our string here, obviously we are going to have our string how are you. Okay, now we may decide to use a built-in method which is called split to just see what is going on. So we may my list, because we're working with, we want to see how we can interchange between strings and list. So if we say my list equals to my string, and let's say dot split. Okay, now if we print this, let's say let's print our string and print our list. Let's see what we're going to have. So if we print here, as you can see that we have our string, but using the split method, we have changed our string into a list here. So by default, if we just use a split method, is that it checks for spaces between our strings. So this is our space, and here this is our space. So it checks between the space, and that's how the string is going to be formed. So you may decide to use, maybe let's put a comma here, and let us put a comma here. So if we just use the split here, if we save this here, we are going to have this string here, because by default it checks for spaces, and there are no spaces, just print a single our list here. So we may decide to use the delimiter here and put it a comma here. If we put a comma there, not a dot, we put a comma there. If we save this, we are going to have, yes, our string is separated into a list, and we may decide to change this list back into a string. So the best way to do this, to convert this list into a string, is using the join method. Let's say new underscore equals to, we have this space, and we use the dot join. So what we have to join here, we have to join my list. Okay, so if we print here, we have this, oh, how are you, why are they two here? Because print my string, how are you? So we have to print statement here. So here, let's print our list here. So we have a list here, and we have our original string here. Now the last thing, let's talk about formatting strings. So there are two ways you can format your strings. There is an old-fashioned way with using the percentage sign, or by using the dot format or the f strings. So for example, let's just demonstrate this. For example, let's see, we have a variable here, and let us call it Tony. This Tony, we may say my string, the variable is, and we put here percentage string, and at the end here we add again a percentage val here. And so if we print, let's say print my string, save this. So, and once we print this, we are going to have the variable is Tony. So this is the old-fashioned way, although it still works. Sometimes you may have a number here. For example, instead of Tony, we may have 2 here. So if you have 2 here, you can't use the percentage S here. Here we use the percentage D. This means we have a digit here. So if we save this, we need to have the variable is 2. Of course, the variable is 2, but also we may have a floating number. So let's say we have 2.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if we use percentage D here, let's print here and save this. Still, we are going to have 2 here and without the decimal points. So to overcome this, instead of using D here, we have to use the percentage F. And if we use F, we save this. If we print it here, we are going to have the decimal places, and we know the default is going to just to give us the 6 decimal places. So it starts here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 7 is excluded. We may decide to say how many digits we want to see on our floating value. So if you want to do this, you can say dot, you may say 2 digits here. If we print it here, okay, let me see here. If we print it here, so we are going to have 2 digits because we specified that we need to have just 2 digits from our floating variable. We can also use the dot format method. So instead of using this the old-fashioned way, we can just decide to use the dot format method. So let's say our variable is still this one, and let's just see how we can use the dot format method. So when using the dot format method, instead of putting this percentage here, you just delete this here and put a placeholder here. So this is called the placeholder, and then instead of putting a percentage value here, you just use dot format, and then you put your variable inside here. So if you save this and if you print it here, you are going to have your variable here. Okay, so this is how you use the dot format method. It's just simple, and just have to put a placeholder here and insert your variable here. Now let's say if we have many variables, for example, let's say we have our variable 2 here. Let's give this equals to 4, and then placeholder 2 here, and instead of just writing variable here 1, we say variable 2 here. So val, it should be val2 here. Sorry for that small mistake, and you should be val2 here. So if we save this and if we print this, so we are going to have just a space here. So we are going to have this here, the variable is this one and the variable is this one. So this is how you use two variables using the dot format method. So with this, you can also specify the amount of digits you want to have when you print your variable. So our first placeholder here, variable 1, so we may decide we use the colon, then we say dot, let's say 2 floating numbers. If we print here, still we have the variable is this and this one, so we have just 2 digits. So this is how you can use by specifying how many digits you are going to have from your variable. Now let's talk about the newest style of formatting our strings, and this I would highly recommend everyone to use this because this is simple and just very simple to use. Okay, now let's say we have our variables here, variable 1 and variable 2. So instead of doing this, we just write the variable is and say we put the f here in the format string, and then inside here we put our placeholder, and we may say we may say we have 2 variables, so and we use another placeholder here. So after putting a placeholder, you can just insert direct your variables. Here we have variable here and we have var2 here. Okay, so if we decide to print this, let's save. If we print this, you see we have the same answer, but this is the simple one because we just using the f string here to format our string. So as you can see, this is very simple compared to other method, and we really recommend everyone to use this kind of formatting. Okay, however, you may also decide to use some mathematical operations inside your placeholder. For example, we kept our var here, we may decide to times by 4. If we time it by 4 and go ahead and save this, still we are going to have 8 here. Of course we need to have 8 because we times 4, and that's how you can do with your formatting strings. So this is all we can do with strings, and this is all that I wanted to show you, how you can go around with the strings, the formatting, checking the index. So thank you so much guys for watching, and hope to see you on another topic.